ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? Alright, so basically today what I wanted to do is go through and continue my Python tutorial with integrating into the GTK API in order to be able to go through and build graphical interfaces and stuff like that. So today what we're going to be doing is going through and showing you the tree widget view. And what that is basically a multifaceted kind of component or widget. It really allows you to do some pretty cool things with the way that you display data. And really the core of it comes down to being able to do basically like a list type of view, but also a kind of grid type of view whereby it looks like a kind of Excel spreadsheet type of view. Okay, and so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go through and actually open this up, and then from there I'm going to go through and change some of the interfaces here, or what I have done is change some of the interface here. So I've cleaned it up, and we are ready to actually go through and do the next step. So the way I figure we're going to go through and show this widget is actually by making a useful application. And so what application, you may ask, am I considering programming? Well, that's great that you asked. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a terminal, which I did like 2 seconds ago here, and echo out, because I can't type, echo $, oh that's not $, PATH. And so basically what I want to do is go through and create a graphical interface that'll takes this, effectively a string, splits it into the respective paths, and then from there allows you to add or delete the respective paths and then save it. Okay, and so when you save it, what it'll do is actually be saved to your the bash RC folder, at least in my instance. If you have a different type of shell environment, then there may be a different way that you set up the path, but basically that's what we're going to be doing, is modifying the path and saving it so that it can kind of be permanently referenced and then permanently pulled back in and out. Okay, so like I said, I've gone through and cleared up the interface here. What I want to do is go through and actually do some other things here to kind of quickly get things set up. So first off, I'm going to change the window ID to be main_window so as to be more clear what that actually is, because main doesn't really, mean too much. But when you say main window, then that means that's like the root window or main window or, the master window. The other thing that I wanted to do was go through and change out the title instead to be edit PATH, edit path app, and I cannot spell to save my life. Okay, and then the other one is to kind of go through and set a kind of predefined open window here, and I want to go through and click on this to preview, and so it's a little bit wide, and so what we want to kind of do is make it taller and maybe a little bit skinnier, which in this instance is actually not letting me shrink it, so that's fine. So we're going to make that, instead of 440, we're going to make that, say, 280, and then this be 440. Okay, and so let's go ahead and see how that looks visually, and see if it's a little bit longer. So it's not, and probably the reason being that the common tab, there may be a request for width and height, and as you see, there actually is. So I'm just going to go ahead and just default them to 0 for here, and then I'm going to modify that so I can hide that. Okay, now when we preview the window, it should show us a 220 by 420 height, and this looks pretty okay. Yeah, okay, so we now have the application pretty much set the way we want it to. So we're going to now go through and kind of start applying some of the things that we learned in the last two videos. Okay, so first off, we need to, of course, go through and structure our application. And so what I'm thinking is that I'm going to need a container. I'm going to want a button or 2 buttons, probably 3 maybe, depending on the situation, as well as I'm going to want the TreeView widget and an entry put in field widget. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go through and go to the container section here, and I'm going to select a GTK box and pop that in. And in fact, because it's stacked accordingly, this actually fits our goals pretty nicely and pretty quickly here. Okay, so then, like I said, what I want to do is have a button, and the one button that I'm going to have is going to be save. Okay, so this is going to be changed. We're going to go through, and I'm going to use actually a stock button because we already have an option that says save near the kind of very bottom here. If I could find it, that is, and that is right here. Okay, and we also want to go through and say always show image so that we have just a nice little aesthetically pleasing icon rather than just strictly the title. Okay, so we have a button. We also want to input the path or create an input for new paths. Okay, so we're going to call this, we're going to use a GTK entry, which I showed last time. And then from there, what we're going to do, actually, in fact, you know what? I want to go through and do a plus button as well. So when we have a situation like this where I need to modify the blockade or the container part, where entry, for instance, is sitting, what I can actually do is right-click on entry and go through and add a parent. And so we're going to go do just that. I'm going to add a parent, and then from there I'm going to go to box, and I'm going to click on the box option here instead of the entry field, and I'm going to change this to horizontal, and then reduce it to just number of items to 2. And then I'm going to also go through and add a button, okay? And this button is going to be basically actually a custom button, and we're not going to go through and have any text for it, but rather we're going to just show an image. And this one, the image is going to be a plus image. So when I go through, and as you'll see here, I'm going to cancel for a second. Down here on the right, I clicked on always show image, and I'm clicking on the little edit button to go through and create or add an image. It pops up this window, and I can click on new, which will then generate for me a new image widget on the left here in the list. Okay, and so I can click on that image widget, and then of course I'm going to just change it for to make things clear of what this image is. I'm just going to say plus image, IMAGE. Okay, and then from there I'm going to still use a stock ID, but what we're going to want to do is go through and do the add image. Okay, and so the button aesthetic or maybe the menu button, we'll do button actually. So that's going to go through and set the type of icon size, and we're using, of course, in this instance, button. Okay, so that's that. Now I'm going to go through and go to the GTK entry. I can either click on it in the center window here, or I could click on it in the column. And so in this GTK entry, this is going to be where we type in the path for what we want to add. Okay, so here I'm going to actually change the way that it's looking, because of course it kind of looks derpy where it's kind of shrunk like this. So remember, if I showed last time, in the packing column, we have things like setting the position, but we also have things like expanding it or filling the item. So usually fill is vertical, expand is horizontal from my recollection. So, or it may not actually strictly be that, but I tend to see expand be the one that does it horizontal fill, but it can be, I think, also vertical sometimes. It just depends on the widget. Anyway, okay, so we have the input column expanding properly. And I also want to go through and go to the general section again here, and we want to place a different placeholder text where we say path. And then I'm just going to do ... path ... Okay, so from there, in fact, it's actually worth adding probably a description for what that plus button does, but okay, we will do that in a moment. All right, so from there, we are now ready to add the TreeView widget. But first, it is worth mentioning that the TreeView widget does not actually have a kind of like internal scroll window. So what we actually need to do is actually embed that widget in a scroll window. Okay, so to do that, what I'm going to go through is I'm going to do a search, and I'm going to type in scroll, and just click on the GTK scrolled window option. Now that, from there, you'll see is, of course, adds it into it, and it, of course, still has an insert area where we can go through and then add our widget. Now, in the scroll window, we actually still have to add one more thing, which is a viewport for that. So the viewport is actually the thing that actually contains the proper widget, and the viewport itself is the one that handles like the scrolling kind of events, effectively. Okay, but scrolled window itself, I want to go through and have it expand as well, so that it consumes all the space. And then from there, we are now ready to add the TreeView widget. Okay, so when I go ahead and click on that, and then boom, we've added it. All right, so we've pretty much nearly completed all the things that we need to do. What I want to go through here is actually quickly also talk about the comment section a little bit, because I'm not certain if I've covered it in the last two lessons, but it is worth talking about here for a second. So again, the common view here basically has a collection of just different things that you can use to set the look of the widget, the styling of the widget, the way that the widget handles, i.e. Whether it has alignment or padding or margins or certain width requests, as you'll see down the bottom half here. But it also has things like the tooltip pop up. And so this is what I want to add for the button itself, is the tooltip. And so, excuse me, I'm hiccuping here. I'm going to click on the button here, and I'm going to add a tooltip that just says add path. And that's what we're going to say for that. I'm also going to add it for the save button here, even though it's pretty self-explanatory. You know, it's worth kind of adding as well. Okay? And in fact, actually, one more thing I want to go through and add to this particular container, in fact, is going to be a delete button. So might as well go ahead and add that as well. So I'm actually going to expand the number of items to 3, and I'm just going to go through and add another button here. And then from there, we're going to do yet another, of course, always show image, and then add an image, and we're going to remove that text as well. So we're going to go through and do new. I'm going to get rid of the text here, and then from there, the image I'm just going to do is DELIMAGE, and then we're going to still use the stock ID, and then this is going to be delete. So we're going to add or delete the path, and not specifically just the path, but rather the so when we click on the widget, the tree widget, it will go through and allow us to add or delete the entry in that widget. Okay, so what I'm going to go ahead through and do now is just connect or set up some signals that we can go through and connect to in the code. Okay, so for the signals, I'm already doing the delete button here. I'm just going to go click on the clicked one and do DELETE ENTRY. I'm going to take that and basically use the base of that, and I'm going to click add, add entry, and then save is going to be when it's clicked. It's going to go through and do save to bash RC is what I'm going to call mine. Okay, so save to bash RC, add entry, delete entry, and then we have the widget itself. Okay, so all right, I think we have the graphical side of this program pretty much set up the way I want it to be set up. So let's go ahead and actually talk about the TreeView widget a little bit here. Okay, so the TreeView widget, like I said, it basically allows you to display either in kind of like a list format or kind of Excel format data. Okay, now we can of course go through and set up the data for this TreeView widget a couple of ways. One being programmatically, the other one being through the GUI as like a static setup, or even yet kind of another one where it is hybrid, where you kind of can do it programmatically and through the GUI a little bit. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is go through and show you the kind of the static way through the widget or the graphical side, and then I'm going to do the programmatic way. The other one where you can do it kind of as a mix, it will be kind of pretty self-explanatory when we do both, and you can kind of like pick apart the parts that you that we did. Okay, so first and foremost, I'm going to go through and show you how to do it in the kind of the graphical side and it being kind of static. Okay, so I'm going to go through and click on the TreeView widget. Okay, and remember on the right side we have all kind of our options regarding the widget, and I'm going to go back to the General tab. Okay, and so when we have a TreeView widget, what it has is effectively a model, and that model references basically a kind of observable list view. Okay, and so what we need to do is go through either programmatically or through the graphical side, set up a model that then references a list, our list view object. Okay, so what I'm going to do is you'll see here on the right there is an option that says TreeView model, and we can go ahead and click on that and then just click on new. From there you'll see on the right it added a new object called GTK list store. Okay, and the list store is basically our data or list view kind of, I'm sorry, I said list view last time. It's list store. List view is an actual other widget that we have available, and it's not like a actual data object really. So list store is kind of like that. It's just a list. It's like a Python list in a sense, okay? Or just kind of really anything that's like an array or a dynamic array type of thing. But this is specific though for kind of like the data types that you insert into it, okay? So graphically, we can go through and then set up a column type. So basically what happens is in the model can kind of connect to columns that then kind of reference the data in the list. Okay, so when you have a list store, the list store can have like basically multiple arrays, and in those arrays have subfields or items, okay? And so we can go through and do a column type here, and we're going to change, or we're going to do gchar array basically. But there are other ones like gboolean, gint, glong, floats, doubles, certain like align items or widgets like GTK icon size, file chooser action, you know, all these options. But we're going to go through and do gchar array, which is basically a string. And then from there, we're just going to give the column name just a list, okay? And from there, we're just going to save it. Then save this graphical interface. I'm going to go through and add then 3 items here, or rows, and I'm going to do y. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do and then u. Okay. So now we have this list store, and it has our data that we want to display in the tree view. And so the model is kind of like that intermediary between the list store and the view, and kind of like handles some of that interaction. But normally what we're going to do is actually interact with the list store, which will then kind of basically do magical background stuff that then updates our view in, you know, in the graphical side. Okay, so we have all that set, and if we click on the main window root here, we're going to go through. I can either right-click again on this, or click on that little button there to preview snapshot, and you'll see here that when we preview, we actually don't see we don't see anything in the view. Okay, well, the reason is because we actually still have to set up the actual view structure effectively. So to do that, we again click on the tree view for focus, right click on it, and now we can go through and click on edit. Okay, and when we edit it, it'll give us things like to add stuff basically. And so when you click on the plus symbol, it's going to go through and add a column. And you can add basically multiple columns, and those columns will then have respective data types. It's basically kind of following that list view structure in a sense. Okay. Okay. So the column then, when we want to add it, well, we can change the column name first. So we can go through and do paths. That's in this, you know, right section here. You got the title. You can change the column title, okay, and we can do things to affect that column, you know, graphically. But we're going to keep it the way it is right now. And then when we right-click on the column, okay, when I left-click there, but right-click on the column, you can go through and say Add Child Text. Okay, so it's a child of the column, and that child text is effectively kind of like the binding to the data in the list view. I'm going to say effectively because I'm not strictly certain, but that seems to be the most logical kind of conclusion, because when you do that, then you can actually see the data in the column. So in this little binding part here, or cell renderer, actually, oh yeah, there we go, that's it. So the cell renderer is basically like the data type renderer, or yeah, basically like the data type renderer of sorts. And so it basically kind of takes that data from the list view and says, oh, this is the type of data, and then it, you know, knows how to handle that data. So it's, you know, it's the renderer in the column. Okay, so well, we have actually a text, and so and we only have one kind of like row or column in our list view. So I'm going to go through, and on this first option here, properties, I'm going to go click on +1, and you'll see on the second side it automatically sets it to the list in gchar array. Okay, and so now we go ahead and click on, you know, or well, we go ahead and click on close and Control S just to save stuff to make sure we have it. I can click then on the window, and I can click on the button to preview, and now we will see our data in the tree view, and we can, you know, of course, you know, highlight it and select it and do that all kind of, you know, exciting magical stuff, or we can at least start doing all that magical exciting stuff. And excuse me, I'm going to go through and take a sip of coffee here. Oh. Ooh, it's like manna. It's like life. Anyway, okay. So we have our data, and we can, okay, and so we have our data. Voila. Okay. Cool. Excellent. Awesome. So now, this is right now the static way that you can kind of do it, okay? Now, it gives you the option to, of course, set it up through the GUI, and then actually reference it in the code and make it dynamic. So you don't strictly have to fill this list, okay? And that's what I was talking about, where you can do it kind of like a hybrid, where you could fill the set amount of data here if you want, or you could not fill any data here, but then have that list view object ready for reference, and then just fill the list view. And the list view and all the other bindings will go through and do magic in the back end to show your data. So we can do it that way, but I'm also going to go through and show you the programmatic way so that you can kind of have both of the worlds. So, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about the other, I guess the hybrid way down the road, but not right now. Anyway, okay, so that's how you can do it on through the graphical interface, making it basically like static, or starting the setup for the hybrid. Okay. But we're going to do this for right now the programmatic way, because it is a little bit more dynamic. And by the way, when I click on the tree view, I just want to make sure I'm GtkTreeView column. Yeah, okay. I just want to make certain things were showing as they should. Okay, so great. I'm going to go ahead and actually get rid of the tree view, by the way. And we're going to just, get rid of that. I'm going to go through and add the GtkTreeView again. I'm also going to go through and get rid of the list store. But take note of the things that we that we stepped through or set up. Okay, we had a list store, we had the TreeView widget, and we had a render or cell renderer. Okay. All right, so we have our stuff. We now need to kind of go through and set up some IDs, at least for reference. So first, I need to set up an ID for the path. So to add path, and then for the cell GtkTreeView, I'm going to do ID. I'm going to say path tree VIEW, path TreeView. Okay. So I'm going to copy that, and we are now ready to go through and start coding. Okay. And this video, by the way, may actually get split up into 2 parts, depending on how long it goes. But we will decide that in a moment, I guess, or down the road here. But okay, so we have that set up, and we are now ready to pull the code, okay? And so let's go ahead, and I'm going to get rid of the print text here. I'm going to save this. I'm going to copy this reference to the main window here. And we did that. Yeah, okay. So I didn't set it up initially here. Okay, I did set it up initially. So I did modify some of the code a little bit initially. So main window is already referenced in the get object for the builder, for the window, but you will need to change it if you're still using the old code that I showed you from the previous video. So you will need to change this ID for the window. But we're going to take this part here, and I'm going to go through and get rid of that and change that over to self dot path tree view. And then what we're going to need to do also, and I'm going to go through and, in fact, I'm going to just kind of split this up like so, to kind of split them and segment them off a little bit, make it a little more clear as to what's going on, or at least what's kind of part of what. Okay, so we have the path tree view. In fact, also, since we're going to be modifying the bashrc file, we're going to need to actually have a reference for the bashrc file. So to do that, I'm going to do self dot bash rc path th. I'm just going to say equals here. And so self bashrc path, and what we need to do is we're going to go through and use the Python environment variables, or at least use Python's bindings to get to the environment variables. And so to do that, I'm going to go through and actually import some other stuff here. I'm going to change this out to be GTK, that's not GTK import. Okay, I'm going to take that, copy that. I'm going to modify this here to be then Python. Python imports. Yeah, better have plurality there. So Python imports, and then I'm going to import from the OS. Import OS dot, or actually, what you can literally do import OS. Okay. Okay. So from there, what we need to do is go through and do the, basically the, what is it, os dot get, or get, and then you'll see an option here that says get env, okay, and then give parentheses for that, and then what we want to go through is give it the value that we want to get. So I'm going to do single quotes here, and a tilde. And that means the home path, okay? So the home path, and then the pathing never adds the slash or forward slash, so I'm going to do just that, and then do plus, and then slash dot bashrc. Okay, so that is our bashrc path. Okay, now we also want to go through and do the list store. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to literally actually basically take this tree view effectively almost, but the only reason why I want to do that is because I want to take that variable reference and I'm going to say path list store. Okay, path list store. Okay, and then to actually have a list store, all you do is just use the GTK dot and then list store. Okay, and in this instance then what we are is we have a single column. Okay, and that single column has basically string data types. So we're going to say that the list store has that single column and it is a str data type. Okay, and then from there, what we could do is what we want to kind of do is go through and get the path environment information and load it into our tree view when the application starts up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through and, by the way, set this to pass for a second. We're going to use this actual def function here a couple of times. In fact, we might as well kind of set it up here for that. I'm going to go back to my main Glade GUI here. I'm going to go click on the buttons, and I'm going to take the signals that I set up here. So delete entry. We're going to do save delete. Actually, yeah. So no, actually, delete needs to be put here. I'm going to do add here. So I'm going to add delete. And I love Python's not spacing, but formatting. It's great. Hint not. But okay, so we have delete entry. We have the add entry, and then we have the save button here. So save to bashrc option here. Okay. And so that's going to be that. And so we have then self widget area. We have the self and widget here properly set up. And so we have pretty much all the things that we need for this. So, okay. Now, oh yeah, what we want is one more actually. Sorry. We want to do load paths. So we'll do load and then path, load paths. And that got rid of the P there for some reason. I'm going to take this and I'm going to basically call it from the init function here. And so we're going to just go through and load paths. And then from there, what we're going to do is use the OS library again. And we're going to say paths str equals os dot get env again. So, and then remember that when we did the echo command, or at least when I did the echo command, it was capital path right here. Okay, so we're going to literally just use that and pass it in. That was not what I want. Control V. Okay, so that's going to give us the string for the paths that are there. We need to split that string into paths, actual. So I'm going to do paths, okay, equal path paths str paths string dot split, okay, and then we're going to split it along the colon, because if you look at the string here, it is delineated through colons, okay. So that will give us a, I want to say list, or maybe an array. I'm not fully exactly explicitly certain. It was one or the other. I want to say it's a list, but whatever. So it's going to give us a list, or in this instance, I think Python calls them tuples. Anyway, it's going to give us the kind of the separated paths, okay? And we want to load those paths into the actual list store here. Okay, so I'm going to take an actual reference to that, and we're going to go through and then do a for loop, because this is really kind of the only way I'm presently aware of to set the paths. And then we're going to say paths, like so, colon, and then list store dot append, and we're going to do, and then when we append it, we're going to do path. And now, this is kind of really important. This is when we append it, the way that this the way that this is handled is that you actually have to give it an what is this? This is a list, right? Or is no, tuples or parentheses, so this is a list. Okay. So you have to actually give it a list or tuple of the object that the objects that you're going to insert into the tree view. So if you had, again, multiple columns, one column being strings, one column being integers, another column being images, then you would give it, the data types here as an array, okay? So this is going to go through and add our path to the list view. Now, when we run this, though, we still actually don't have all the parts necessary to actually get this showing. Okay, so what we need to do now is actually go through and add this list store to the tree view. Okay, so but we have to again create columns and add those columns to the tree view, and then have the list store just basically set as the model for that tree view. So basically, remember we had the cell renderer type. Okay. Remember, it was going to be text because we're dealing with strings. So the first thing we're going to do then is create a renderer. Okay, and so when we create the renderer, we're going to just do GTK dot cell renderer text because we're dealing with strings. Okay, so GTK cell renderer text. That's going to be the render type for the column, and then we need to go through and do actually a column. So path column, and this is going to be going through, and we're going to create that column object. And so we're going to do GTK dot tree TreeView column parentheses. Okay. And in the TreeView column itself actually takes three arguments. Okay. And so the three arguments are title, okay? And in this instance, the title for me is going to be paths, P-A-T-H-S, okay? The other one is going to be the renderer, so it's going to be cell underscore renderer equals renderer. And then from there, we also need to assign effectively this what the data is going to be in this column. And effectively, we're just kind of saying row 0 of the list view is going to go in here. And so we're doing just text because that's the first one or whatever. And so we're just saying, bind it like so or whatever. Or what is it? Yeah, is this right? So it's like basically when we saw it in the graphical side, it was giving you the text cell renderer data type. So yeah, so we got the cell renderer, but then we also give it the data type, I want to say. And so then it'll take that information from the list view. But okay, so we have the renderer, we have the path column, so all we have left to do is go through and append this column to the view. So we need to take this path tree view here. Okay. And actually, by the way, this really should be paths. Well, maybe we could call it. Yeah, well, we'll call it just path tree view. Yeah, we'll just call it path tree view. So we're gonna go through and give it path tree view, and we're gonna go through and do append underscore column, column, and then we're just gonna give it that path column data that object. Okay, so append column path column, and then from there we need to set the model. Remember. Because it's going to have to go through, and that's kind of like the intermediary between it and the list view. And so we're going to do set underscore model parentheses, and then we're going to give it the list view here. And I'm going to take that, Control C, and Control V. Okay, so theoretically, and I'm going to go ahead and close this out because we're not in the proper path anyway, so it's going to be kind of a moot point to use that. We're going to go through and pull up the terminal here, and we should be pretty good to go. And I'm going to say main.py. And in fact, before I even do this, I just want to double check that I have everything that I need to be set properly here. We've got the title, we've got the cell renderer, we've got the text at equals 0. We're appending the column. We set up the model to path list store. we are splitting the paths, or we have the path string split into its a little list or tuple or whatever array, and then from there we call it. We have bashrc we have our bashrc path set up, so we're ready to save to that location when we're ready. We've got the TreeView widget, and we have the list store, which is good. Now, I want to go say, well, we can do it first without this, but we may need to do show all, and so I'm not fully certain just yet. But let's go ahead and test for here, and let's see here. Unsupported operand types for plus, none type, and string. OS, so we have OS get in V. Oh. I'm sorry. So that's not correct. And we do not want to do get in V. It is, I apologize. It's going to be, oh God. Let me see if I can find it here. I have it here. Oh gosh, this is a long list. Get current working directory, get home. Oh, wait, I wonder if we could get home. Okay, so we don't have that. What was it? It was... path? Path? Is it path? Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, we got... Okay. Path... so it's os.path dot... and then here we got to go through and do... expand user. There we go. So os.path expand user. Okay. Plus the / plus bashrc. So that's going to just give us our... Again, that's going to give our bashrc file path. I'll go ahead and now run that. And, oh, goodness gracious. Okay, self. Load paths, self. Because we gave it a widget. I apologize. We gave it a widget. And we do not want to give it a widget because we're not passing a widget to it. Aha! Okay. Boom. Booyah. Now we have our paths listing in the TreeView widget. Alright. So this video is going on pretty long. What I'm going to do is, again, split this probably into a secondary video, but we do have the core of the application pretty much set up. What we need to do now is add the save functionality and plus and add or delete an entry from this list, and then and then we're pretty much done with this little application, and that will of course cover the TreeView widget completely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, thank you very much for watching. Please rate, subscribe, tell me what you think, and I will talk to you all later.